I'm Jennifer from Alabama, United States. This is my little story. In late 2017, for whatever reason, E. coli sepsis decided I would be an ideal host. It had quite a time with my body, taking a kidney, hijacking most of the other kidney's function, stealing my left eye, messing with my heart, necessitating a pacemaker, introducing me to a ventilator, which nobody tells you ruins your teeth, drastically slowing my metabolism, causing me to gain massive weight, and killing me twice, just for a few moments each time. I was in the hospital in Columbia, South Carolina for 3 months. I am glad it had its fun. After lots of treatment, physical therapy, and a new glass eye, I began to feel almost human again. Then the polyneuropathy set in, which significantly impacted my mobility as well as the use of my hands and fingers. This became too much. I was told I would need dialysis shortly, and while I knew this would increase the longevity of my life, it would deplete the quality, as it would keep me alive so that I could go to other specialists who would keep me alive so I could go back to dialysis. An untenable hamster wheel. And as I have no close family and everyone in my support network is older than I was terrified of landing in a state-run nursing home at the mercy of strangers. Shortly thereafter, I made the rational decision to take my life with pine nuts, to which I was deathly allergic. Epic fail. I had no clue you could outgrow an allergy well into adulthood. Lesson learned. I was bound and determined that the next time I actively sought to bow out, it would be a sure thing and it would be peaceful. Enter Exit International, July 2023. I reached out to Exit upon reading an article about a new pod, Sarco, that promised a peaceful, reliable egress. It seemed ideal for me, and I was humbled and astonished to be invited to be its first user. I had not even considered being its maiden voyager, and I told the folks at Exit that I would happily wait in line, as I was sure there were others far more desperate than I to use it. Sean Davison, my initial point of contact with Exit, was kind and reassuring, and we recognized an immediate kindred spiritedness. Sean helped me understand the science of Sarco and made me feel confident that I would have a very peaceful death if I chose to move forward. He and I became closer and closer, and I asked him if he would be there with me at the end. Further, I asked him to scatter my ashes. Imagine my profound surprise upon learning out of the blue from Fiona Stewart that Sean would no longer be there with me, nor would he have access to my ashes. I had no idea why Sean was yanked away as my companion, and I was given no reason. As I am not an idiot, I realized something wasn't adding up, and I expressed my confusion, anger, and disappointment to Sean. I had no idea Sean was not part of Exit anymore, and he had been forbidden to share that news with me. I was told in no uncertain terms to report back to Fiona if I had any contact with Sean, and he was told to report back to Philip if he had any communication with me. Fiona became my sole point of contact with Exit. She was amiable, and I enjoyed having a girlfriend to talk with, as I was going this journey solo and couldn't talk with anybody back home. However, this feeling of security quickly dissolved as I learned that I was misled about Sean and other important matters. The thing is, I kept asking why they chose me to be Sarco's first, and they told me it would be better for them to have someone articulate for the media. In retrospect, I'm quite confident that they chose me in part because of my easygoing nature, and they thought I could be easily manipulated. Sorry, the pages are stuck together. I arranged to fly into Amsterdam in May 2024, where a former director of Exit was kind enough to pick me up at the airport. This man, he quickly became a close friend and confidant, and I don't know what I would have done without him. He stayed by my side in Haarlem, flew back to accompany me to Lucerne, and back again to meet me in Zermatt, and his love and loyalty far superseded that. Upon my arrival in Haarlem, I was asked to talk with a journalist via Zoom. This was the first of quite a few arranged media interactions. And aside, in a recent press conference, Fiona announced that they would never expose a Sarco user to a media circus. Fiona encouraged me to tell the media that I wished for my assigned companion to be the only person present when I went to be with Sarco in Schaffhausen on July 17th, my birthday. She said it would put Philip at too much legal risk to be nearby. I have since learned that this would have exposed my friend to significant legal consequences. This felt like an egregious deceit. When I arrived in Europe, I had about 40,000 US dollars. This was the aggregate amount of my savings, selling everything I ever owned and selling my car. As I was on disability, I earned very little money. To make matters worse, Fiona and Florian, especially Florian, who was I believe at that time, the president of the Last Resort. I may be mistaken on his title, but just really drained my resources. As soon as Florian was sort of tasked with looking after me in Zurich, and the first time I ever met him in Haarlem, the very first interaction we had, he charged a very expensive bottle of water to my room and didn't even ask me if that was okay. It's not that I care about the cost of the bottle of water. It just felt very awkward and presumptive, and it didn't get my relationship with Florian started off on a good foot. And when Florian looked after me in Zurich, every meal, he just waited for me to pay. He didn't explicitly say, "You're going to pay," but he just stood aside and waited for me to put my credit card in the machine, or when the waiter came, he just waited for me to pull out my credit card and pay. And I thought maybe that's the way this works, but I had not been told, because I had been told that I couldn't pay them, nor could they pay me. And I don't understand how this wasn't paying them, frankly. And I felt very taken advantage of by Florian, particularly in that situation. And I also thought it was very interesting that Fiona sent me an invoice for the nitrogen that was going to be used. And the invoice was for either $100 or $120. But then in the press conference, a recent press conference, she said that the nitrogen would only cost $20. And again, I know that's not a lot of money, but it just adds to the things that I was misled about. And then, as if draining my finances wasn't enough, they also depleted my mental and physical health, invaded my peace and privacy during really my most vulnerable moments, and my last couple of days, what I understood were going to be my last couple of days on the earth. At a recent press conference, I think I said this already, but Fiona claimed that anyone chosen to use Sarco wouldn't be thrust into a media circus. This really couldn't be farther from the truth. From the moment I arrived in the Netherlands in May, I was set up to talk with journalist after journalist after journalist after journalist. I explained that I needed time to think and to kind of tidy up my communications to the valuable tribe who loves me back home in the United States, and to my special gentleman friend, Dave. I needed a lot of time, alone time, to deal with that. And they kept saying, we know you need time, we won't ask much more of you, or we won't ask more of you. And to gather my thoughts, I took a trip on the Glacier Express through the Swiss Alps. That was on my list from the beginning that I wanted to do. It was very, very important to me. I felt like that would be an ideal time to reflect, because the mountains have always been so, so important to my family and to me. A quote that my dad has instilled in me since I was a little girl is John Muir saying, "The mountains are calling and I must go." And that trip was supposed to be the personification of that. I was hoping to kind of find my place and feel at home and make peace with my forever home on that trip. I asked Fiona for, to take this time by myself. Initially, she said Florian was going to accompany me. And as I already had serious misgivings about Florian, I asked her if I could figure out a way to do it by myself. And she said that Florian would sit elsewhere and just be available if I needed any help. Then she asked me if a documentarian could come with me. And she said he would sit in another part of the train and just come maybe ask me a question here or there about how I was feeling. I really, really liked Scott, the documentarian, and I was happy to oblige. But I was very surprised when I learned, when we got on the train, that his seat was right across the table from me, and he was filming basically the whole time, and it was not at all the intimate experience with my own thoughts and feelings that I had anticipated and hoped for. When I got to Zurich, I had gotten a message that there would be another documentarian in Zurich that I would meet with at some point, but I had no idea that I would be met at the train station, getting off the train after a long, tiresome trip. And the gentleman turned out to be a lovely man and has become a very close friend and trusted ally, and I have love for him, so I have no ill will toward him. He was doing exactly what Exit instructed him to do in meeting me at the train and not following me, but coming back with me to my apartment, just kind of miking me up and being with me the whole time. I had told Fiona kind of over and over that I really do support what y'all are trying to do with this documentary, but it's getting to be a little bit much. I really need time. And she was asking me to make videos every night. And so even when the documentarian went home, I was still expected to make video after video, and she would send me topics of what she wanted me to cover. She even specifically wanted me to make a video criticizing another Right to Die organization for their criticism of Sarco, and she wanted me to talk about why, since I was an only child, why Sarco was ideal for me because I didn't have anybody to hold hands with or whatever. And that felt very, very weird, and she then wanted, and I wouldn't do that, but then she wanted me to address an individual at another of the Right to Die organizations by name. I didn't do that, of course, but then she wanted to feed me various criticisms of Sarco and have me make a video contradicting each one of them. I made a video explaining why Sarco was right for me, but not criticizing anything anyone had said about it, and I that was all I could do.